All right, Miss Genesis.
Hi friends, my name is Genesis and today I'm going to be talking to you about coffee. Actually, I didn't like coffee for the longest time and I didn't start drinking it until I was a freshman in college, which was actually about 3 years ago. And really, the only thing that drew me to coffee was actually that I was really tired all the time and I needed the caffeine. It wasn't even the taste. And I think if we're being honest, that's really what draws most people to coffee. No? I'm so sorry. I don't think I'm pressing the right button. Alrighty, so most people don't know this, but the coffee bean that's actually on your table is not the way that it actually starts out. So coffee beans are grown in farms and they start off as a cherry. And once they reach about like a reddish purple burgundy color like you see right here, that's when farmers will start picking them. After this process, we go into where they're either processed like the natural way or they're washed. And really, most people use like the washed way because it doesn't change the flavor that much, but, so going more into detail. So in when you do it the natural way, you're just leaving the bean out and you let it dry for about 30 to 40 days, and you let the bacteria that lives on the cherry metabolize the sugar, and this gives it more of a sweeter flavor. When you wash the bean, we do it backwards. So you start off by putting, you put it through a depulper, and that removes the skin and the fruit, which is the cherry that you saw in the previous one. And then after that, they're placed into buckets of water and rinsed thoroughly. They're rinsed about 2 or 3 times, and in this process, they're checking the quality, and to do so, they're picking out all of the beans that are floating on top, and those beans are the ones that are defective and damaged. After that, they're placed on mats to dry, and they dry for about 1 to 2 weeks depending on the weather. Meanwhile they're drying, they're raked. And meanwhile they're being raked, they're trying to reach an internal moisture temperature of about 11%. And again, depending on the weather, this can take about 1 to 2 weeks. After this process, they're moved into bins for about 30 to 40 days where they're just left to rest until they're ready to be sourced. So, if you're looking for a coffee bean that has a more sweeter and creamier taste, you're going to want to go more on the natural route. But if you're wanting just to taste like what I don't really like, the bitter, like the actual natural fruit of the coffee bean, you're going to want to go in the wash process. Another factor that affects the flavor of the coffee bean is where the coffee farms are located. So coffee farms that are located in lower altitudes have lower levels of oxygen. And in these areas, such as in Indonesia, these farms will have a high turnover rate, whereas coffee farms that are located in higher altitudes will have a longer turnover rate because they have lower oxygen levels. So unfortunately, they take longer to cultivate, but because they take longer, they have more time to develop a deeper and rich flavor. So now we get to my favorite part, which is roasting the beans. And roasting the beans just means that we're cooking them. And when you cook the beans, you're placing them into ovens. So depending on the type of bean, does anybody know, there's 3 different types of beans. Does anybody know the types of beans? No? So we have a blonde, a medium, and a dark roast, as you guys see on your tables. And blonde roasts are roasted for about 9 minutes, medium roasts are roasted for about 16 minutes, and dark roasts are roasted for about 30 minutes. Contrary to popular belief, blonde roasts actually retain the most caffeine level because they're only roasted for about 9 minutes. And then dark roasts, though they lack the caffeine level, they make it up in their flavor because they're left in the oven for a longer period of time, which allows the oven to caramelize the bean and give it more of a sweet and deeper flavor. So, I have a little activity for you guys, but I didn't take account of the lighting. So I was hoping that by looking at them, you guys would be able to organize them from lightest to darkest, but you guys can also organize them by, perfect! You guys can also organize these beans by smelling them. So I'll give you 30 seconds. first baggie, the lightest roast should be baggie number 2. And if you open so it should be 2, 3, 1. Does anybody have that? Okay, so I'm not sure that. So if you open up the bags, you'll find that your blonde roast beans actually have a more light and floral scent. Your medium roast beans actually have a more milder and just balanced scent. Your darker beans will have a more earthy, rich, and intense scent, which is actually my personal favorite. Thank you all so much for listening to me, guys.